You're listening to Science Coast with Mallory Havens and
Chris White. And today
our guest, go for it, Chris.
Today our guest is
Ashley Skidmore.
Ashley, what's your title and position here at Lewis University?
I currently serve as the Vice President of Enrollment Management, and I've been with Lewis University for just over 20 years.
And in case you couldn't tell, Mallory is on assignment. She's out in Michigan at the University of Michigan doing some amazing research. So when will we expect you to come back, Mallory?
Next week.
Next week. Awesome. Well, enjoy your time out in Michigan, and I hope that the experiments you're running are all very successful.
So far, some of them.
Yeah, but that's part of what we've been talking about on this podcast, right? Science
Right.
isn't a sure thing. You do experiments and they fail, and then you try again.
Exactly.
Anyway, so today we thought that we would invite Ashley to come speak with us as Vice President for Enrollment Management. One of the things that she does is oversee both undergraduate and graduate admissions. And so there's a lot of, my experience in being in higher ed for all these years is that there's a lot of anxiety, especially in prospective students, about what the application process is like. And so we thought that we would bring in Ashley to help explain all of the things that she wishes prospective students would know as they're preparing their applications to go to college.
And to be fair, back when I applied to college, I'm pretty sure you still mailed in your application.
You and me both, Mallory. We had to mail it in, all those postage stamps and an envelope for each school and a transcript and recommendation. It was a hassle.
Yeah.
I think I had a chisel and some stone tablets.
Back then, there probably was chisels, yes, and stones, for sure.
Yeah, you
Maybe
might
marble.
have. You could have had a homing pigeon, that dropped it off, a carrier pigeon.
Oh, that's true. A very robust carrier pigeon carrying the stone tablets. All right, so Ashley, how would you like to start?
So the first thing I'd like to say is that when you apply to college, we work in an office that's called the Office of Admission and not the Office of Rejections. Most institutions truly are looking for ways and reasons to admit students to their institution. There are clearly some institutions that have very low acceptance rates, and those are your very prestigious Ivy League type of schools. But most colleges across the country have acceptance rates of well over 50-60%, like Lewis University. So we're looking for reasons to admit students and not to reject. So I want to say that to inform students and to hopefully remove that whole scare tactic. Applying to colleges can be scary and nerve-wracking, but I want students to realize that it's also can be very fun and exciting time to think about your future. And so don't let that process deter you from doing the application itself. So that's my first thing is go into it open-minded, but also go into it open-minded about the types of colleges that you want to apply to, the types of institutions, the types of programs that maybe you want to study, and also types of locations and small schools, big schools. So I think it's really important to keep your eyes wide open in terms of the possibilities that are out there. The application itself, depending on the institution, can be very overwhelming. Some institutions require 5 letters of recommendation, 2 essays, a big long form. So you just want to make sure that you're aware of what's required by each institution. I always encourage families, even my own nieces, nephews, my kids, keep a spreadsheet of the institutions that you want to apply to. What are their requirements? What are their deadlines? Because a lot of times it's making sure that you follow the deadlines and making sure that you've submitted everything so that you can be considered for admission. So staying organized about your search is really helpful. But the application itself, for the most part, it's a lot of demographic. It's a lot of personal information, your name, your address, and then it's getting into the essays. And many, many times you can write one essay that can be edited or modified to apply to many institutions. They're going to want to know about why you want to pursue a certain major at an institution. They want to know maybe a little bit about your experience in high school, things that you've been involved with both in school, out of school, in your community, maybe a church, maybe it's a part-time job. So letting them know these are the qualities that I possess that would make me a good candidate or a good student at your institution and what I can bring to your university community. And again, it could be resumes, it could be essays, it could be letters of recommendation. I encourage students to think outside of the box when they're looking for those letters of recommendation. Your teachers are going to be overwhelmed with the request. Are there other people in your community? Maybe it's a boss that you have a part-time job that could write a letter of recommendation. Maybe you volunteer at some community organization and somebody there could write a letter about your personal characteristics and your attributes that would make you a great college student. So stay organized. Think about outside of the box in terms of resources, but ultimately this is your opportunity to present yourself on paper to be a strong candidate for that institution.
But what if I don't know what I want to study?
That's okay. You don't have to know.
Can you just say that in the essay that you're still deciding what your passions are and you want to attend college to try to explore various passions? Does that work?
Yes, most institutions will welcome that concept and really actually enlighten and give you confidence to know that over 50% of their students do enroll as undecided or undeclared or still working towards that vision. There are some institutions where you do have to apply to a certain college, or much larger institutions where you'll apply to some particular program within a college and you have to kind of declare. But that is a question that you'll always want to contact the Office of Admission and say, I'm still exploring. How do I represent that on best on my application?
And that's not going to be held against students in the application process?
It should not, no.
Good. It's not here at Lewis.
Not at Lewis University, no way. Many of our students, state a major or degree program on their application, and then during conversations with them through the Office of Admission, we learn they're not really they're just kind of thinking that they want to be a biology major or thinking that they want to do, economics or something in the College of Business, but they're not really sure. They just put that down because they've heard of that major, but they really don't understand what it all entails. So, we let students know you're at an institution like Lewis, you're admitted to the college or the university in general, and that you can change between majors 6 months, a year and a half after you've been here, and that's okay. We welcome that.
Awesome. So how much help can a student ask for as they're preparing their essays, their story that they submit, along with the the demographic information and the grades? And I think the essays are an important part of the application process. So are they really expected to do it completely on their own, or are they allowed to get some help as they put it together?
Many high schools will actually, in the English class, in the junior, senior year, will start preparing you on how to write that essay, gives you tips. You can certainly seek out guidance. The one thing that I would caution all students is to make sure that it's an authentic essay and not straight from something that you get off of an AI chatbot or GPT. You want to make sure that it's authentically written by you, that you're expressing your own ideas, your own maybe opinions, but your own self-assessment. A lot of times the essays are something that's a personal reflection that's happened in your life or experiences. And so certainly writing the draft, asking somebody to reread it, somebody to proofread it is always helpful. Do that 2 or 3 times until you feel really confident that you have a strong statement. I will also warn one other thing. It is best not to do these things on your cell phone. Students on...
I didn't even think of that.
Yeah, what I find is that many students who do submit their application on the cell phone get into the mode of... Texting, yes, incomplete grammar. And so they don't, spell words correctly. They don't use punctuation or capitalization. You can certainly tell when it's written quickly on a cell phone versus somebody's put some thought and energy into it.
So how about extracurriculars versus true peer academics? How does the admissions office at Lewis University look for? What balance do you look for?
I think the key is balance. We often see some students who are very heavy into their academics and have very limited extracurriculars. I'm not going to say that's a negative, thing right off the bat, but we want to make sure, because college, the importance of time management and balance, work-life balance in college is really important. So we want to see a student who's challenged themselves academically, but also find a way to connect socially and engage outside of, just their academic life. But I also want to stress that extracurriculars doesn't necessarily have to mean that you did 12 clubs in high school. It could be one particular club that you stuck with all 4 years of high school and maybe at a part-time job. Or we see many students who have, heavy family contributions that they have to do, whether that's work or watching younger children. And I think it's important to notate that on your application so that a college can see I wasn't involved in 15 activities in high school because I'm committed and I'm a part of my family member and I have to, help oversee younger children or whatever the situation is. So something that shows that you're part of a community, that you can be engaged in society, but also focus on your academics.
Mallory, I want to make space for you to jump in here. I know you're remote.
So when a student is looking for a college, when I was doing it, I applied to large state schools and then smaller private schools. And in the end, after going to campuses, I realized that I wanted the smaller atmosphere. But how should a student go about considering that? Is it get to the campuses, see them, see what you like? Is it self-assess what you liked in high school, what kind of classes, what kind of environment? How do you choose?
So interesting that you bring this up because I also have I have a son that just started as a freshman in college, and I have a daughter who's a junior in high school. So I'm starting the college search process over again. And we literally just had this conversation last week with her about these are the things that I think that a person or a student should start considering as don't necessarily think about the name of the institution, but think about, can I imagine myself sitting in a class of 300 students? How does that feel? What do you think that's going to feel like? And conversely, can you consider yourself being one of only 5 students in a class and what that might feel like or what that educational experience might include? And some students are like, well, yeah, the 300 sounds really exciting. And what I think is important is that students keep both types of institutions on their list, and you really don't know one from the other or how that's going to feel or how that's going to look until you are able to visit a campus. Sit in a classroom for a minute, observe a class if you can, walk the campus, see how people interact with each other. And the other thing I'll say is, I have 2 students. One might want 2 kids. One might want a very large institution that might fit him or her, and the other one might not. And it doesn't make that one is better, one is more right or wrong. It's about finding the right fit for you as a student and you as a potential community member of that institution, what feels right for you. So it doesn't have to be the same for everybody in the family. I'm the youngest of 4. We all have completely different college experiences, and it's very funny when we try to talk about college, we don't really talk the same language because every one of us had a completely different college setting. And so I think that's kind of the joy of the college search process too.
Can I ask you to illustrate that point a little bit further by talking, giving some details about the culture that we have here at Lewis University versus some of the cultures of the institutions that your children have visited?
Yeah. So at Lewis, I describe Lewis University as a place where everybody can find their niche. We have a lot of, hardworking students that more or less have a lot of family ties or connections locally that they don't want to go away to school. They just want that right size institution. It's a great family kind of community environment. People know you by name, or at least face. They say hello to you in between classes. So I think there's a nice community feel here at Lewis. And I know a lot of our students and parents really appreciate that. It's often reflected in their comments to us when they visit campus, how nice it is, how people are so welcoming and encouraging. And I think that's something that that makes Lewis thrive and makes us a little bit different. And then, when I've taken my son to visit other colleges, I try to sit back and let him notice. And he's like, this one kind of felt cold. When I walked through the buildings, I didn't see a lot of students like really talking to each other or engaging with each other. And that was totally on his own. I did not coach him for things to look for. So I wanted him to have his own experience. And on his own, he kind of could pick out different parts of the community. We visited one particular institution and he said, wow, everyone I met was an athlete. What does that say? And I'm not an athlete. And so again, letting him ask the right questions and let him get the feel, but you can't get that feel from just visiting everything online and doing the online virtual tours. You really need to meet the people and see the sites in person if you can.
Mallory, you've been here at Lewis University a very long time. How would you describe the culture to prospective students?
A very long time.
Longer than me.
That's true. It's been about 10 years. I would say that it's very familial feeling and a good sense of community. So the professors, to the students' surprise sometimes, are actually friends with each other. And we get to know our students. We keep in contact with them. I have students that come back and visit or just shoot me an email, keep me updated on their life. So we're going to get to know our students. I get to know my students, and I stay in contact with the ones, especially the ones who have done research with me for many years after they've graduated.
Chris, can I add to that? I think one thing that makes Lewis and similar institutions a little bit different than some of the larger ones is that you hear these stories, and you might hear those same stories at a larger state institution about faculty and student connections and relationships. But I think it's the percentage of the stories that you hear from Lewis graduates of, I kept in contact with 5 or 6 of my professors, and of the students that walk across the stage, 80 or 90% might say that. At a large state institution, only 5 or 10% will probably say I have really strong relationships with my professor. So I think that is something that really differentiates Lewis University from our peers.
And I want to, I want to share something that I actually shared with my class just a week ago as we were finishing up the semester. And it just was spontaneous, and it was sincere, and it just came from the heart, and I didn't know that I was going to say it before I said it. And at the very end, I simply said, I am going to miss the time that we've had together this semester. Please don't be strangers and come to see me. Mm-hmm. And I sincerely meant that I had tremendous attendance. The students came every class period, and we really sincerely enjoyed being together as a group and bonded in a way which I thought was really, really special. And mm-hmm. it meant something to me as well. Right. And I sincerely hope that it meant something to the students. So thank you.
I always think it's funny when students the semester after I had them in class would be like, my name's so-and-so, you had me in this class, I don't know if you remember me. And I'm like, of course I remember you.
Right.
You sat in the second row, the third seat from the left.
And you wore a hat every day, yes.
And I can tell you your approximate grade, and I also remember that you have 2 siblings and a dog.
Right.
Anyway, so the views, thoughts, and opinions expressed are the speaker's own and do not represent the views, thoughts, and opinions of Lewis University. The material and information presented here is for general information purposes only. The Lewis University name and all forms and abbreviations are the property of its owner, and its use does not imply endorsement of or opposition to any specific organization, product, or service. This podcast was produced in the WLRA podcast studio at Lewis University. Visit lewisu.edu for more information about Lewis University. For Science Coast, go ahead.
Yeah, you've been listening to Science Coast with Mallory Havens and
Chris White.
And Ashley Skidmore.
See you again soon. Bye.